Skwawkbox and Canary cleared after smear campaign against them. And to speak about this, we've got someone from Skwawkbox. We've got Steve Walker. If I can just find Steve. Steve, are you there?
Unmute. There we go. Can you hear me?
I can. Good to see you, Steve. And we've got from Canary, we've got another Steve. We've got Steve Topple. Are you there, Steve?
I am. Morning.
So two Steves who've been vindicated because what was this? Why was this report brought out, Steve Walker?
Well, you know, I'm sure that John Mann would give different reasons for why he commissioned this report from King's College London, but you know, my reading of it is clear that it's part of a political attempt to shut down the left-wing media and look for justifications that they can use. And the report was quite a laugh when you got into the details of it because it couldn't find any anti-Semitism. So it was reduced to kind of saying that some people who read it might harbour anti-Semitic views, which, you know, was bizarre that he should, you know, they should then make a big deal out of this. If anybody wants to read more kind of analysis on what was wrong with it, Tim Fenton on Zeller Street did a really good kind of breakdown of the various problems with it. So, you know, it hadn't been so, you know, dangerous in the sense of attacking free speech, etc., then it would have been really funny. But yes, it would, you know, I don't know about John Mann and the Canary, but there's quite a history between John Mann and Skwarkbox in terms of highlighting his attacks on gypsy travellers. A leaflet he put out that they considered was racist and targeted them. He was actually interviewed by police in association with that. We highlighted that. You know, he was told if he ever reissued this leaflet, he should remove the bits that actually describe gypsy Roma travellers as a social ill and antisocial, you know, to classify them in a list of antisocial behaviour. So it wasn't illegal encampments; it was actually gypsy Roma travellers themselves who was treated as the problem, which caused a great deal of upset among them. And you know, there was another instance where he made a claim about somebody on social media that turned out to have been false. That they'd said his grandson being sick was karma for him, you know, for who he was, and that hadn't been the case. But I'll read you you know, I put in the press inquiry to him about this, and that's where he was going to withdraw now that the falseness of the allegation was clear. I mean, he denied that it was false with him. He said, as for you, your motive is clear, and action will be taken against anyone and every one of you in my family. Other actions have commenced, and of course, we have secured previous expulsions and convictions, and I will be asking for Jeremy Corbyn's direct intervention to fast-track action on this latest vile attack. So asking him a question about something he'd done was a vile attack. So, you know, there's a bit of form there and a bit of history. So, you know, I would think that there's a bit of payback involved in trying to do this as well.
So I'll come back to you in Steve, because the other Steve Topple. I mean, how intimidating do you think John Mann has been to Canary and Skwarkbox in the way he's gone about this?
Look, I mean, I think it's a case of attempted intimidation from John Mann. What I would say is that the report was quite clear. I mean, there's a really important passage which I just want to read to the viewers. It was the conclusion of the Impress report, and it said, quote, "The committee considered that the material is not sensationalist and does not use language that is likely to provoke hatred or put a person or group in fear, nor does it appear to be intended to have that effect. Those that disagree with the publisher's views on subjects such as Zionism may find those views offensive, adversarial, or provocative, but this in and of itself does not rise to the level of threat or targeting of persons or groups on the basis of their protected characteristics as envisaged by Impress Code."
And it's worth bringing in there, Steve, that wasn't just a report. They stuck, I think it was another 9 extra examples of what they considered were problematic and you know, those got dismissed as well. Some of them weren't even written by either of us, you know, our sites, which kind of speaks for itself, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In terms of intimidation, look, I think that there was clearly a merging of factors why John Mann wanted to report what the report commissioned. Firstly, a lot of it stems from the 2017 general election. Skwarkbox and the Canary specifically showed just what impact independent media could have on democracy in this country. I mean, it's a fairly well-known statistic that in the 2 months prior to that general election, 8 million voters read something by the Canary. I mean, we overtook numerous outlets like the New Statesman, the Economist, the Spectator, the Times Online, in terms of our reach. And that was clearly a threat. And it also merged with the general threat to the establishment and the way the system operates from Jeremy Corbyn. But in terms of intimidation, I think there's a broader point to be made here, and it's one which my boss, my chief operating officer, Nancy Mendoza, alluded to extremely well in an article she wrote. There were people behind all these accusations in this report. There was Nancy, who is Jewish, who lives with chronic illnesses and is disabled. There was Kerry Ann, who suffers complex PTSD, and partly as a result of this report, but prior to that, the generalised smear campaign, not only against the Canary, but anyone on the left who was holding Israel to account over its apartheid actions, it contributed to Kerry Ann's breakdown at the end of 2018. We have our senior editor, Emily, also Jewish, who lives with complex PTSD, mental health issues, and chronic illnesses. There's a whole team of people at the Canary who have personally been impacted for years by this smearing. And it not only is us as workers, it extends to our families as well, who have to live through this day in, day out. People have been devastated by what's gone on at the Canary, and we have to keep coming back in, day out, still working. Now, while this report feels like a vindication, which it is, because Impress is a robust regulator, compared to the Independent Press Standards Organisation, which is essentially an old boys' club of the corporate press who self-edit themselves, Impress is robust. And it has firstly shown the need for an independent regulator who can take on government-sanctioned reports against independent media. But it's also, as I say, the effect has been far-reaching of what went on over the past few years, and that cannot be understated enough. And moreover, the generalised campaign against us, which preceded the report, nearly ruined the Canary. We nearly went bust because of things like Stop Funding Fake News, led by Rachel Riley, totally baseless campaigns. We lost money because of that, and we ended up having to reach out, as some of you will know, to call on people to help us financially. These are 20-odd people's livelihoods at stakes, as well as their mental and physical health, and that cannot be understated in this. And again, it's just to wrap up what I want to say on this, it's a notion of punching down as such. None of us at the Canary are particularly privileged. We're privileged in terms of that we have the opportunity to be paid to write and do something we love. But we are not the Laura Kuenssbergs of this world. We are not the Robert Pestons of this world. We are not the Andrew Marrs of this world. I'm sitting here in the council house now. And this was real punching down on a lot of people who, as I say, are chronically ill, disabled, live with mental health issues, live with complex PTSD. And I think the history books will show that it was one of the most despicable periods, not only against independent media, but against people with socialist values in this country in the last few decades.
Thank you, Steve. Sorry, I muted myself. That was really powerful. I was just wondering, Steve Walker, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Now, how has that affected you? Because obviously you've been smeared as well continually. I mean, I keep seeing people smearing you in little snide ways. I mean, you've got to have quite a thick skin to keep going.
I mean, I'm not impervious, but you know, it's kind of par for the course, and I just flip it around really and take it as a back-ended compliment. You know, the more that they're attacking me, the more I'm inconveniencing them, which is kind of the job. So, you know, I wouldn't say I like it, and it would be nice to be, you know, universally loved. But doing what we do, you're never going to get that situation. So it kind of comes with the territory. I think it's just, you know, in the end, it exposes itself. The problem that you have, and I mean, you know, the thing with Impress, you know, it was obvious this report was nonsense, but you can't just assume that other people are going to read it that way when they've got their own kind of, priorities and agendas and everything. So it's nice to have it behind us, but it was always a sick job from start to finish. And it's interesting as well, and I think it's worth highlighting because somebody pointed out to me this week that the independent academic who was the main author of this report, and the other person seems to be a bit of a ghost on social media, can't find anything really by them. This independent scholar has them, but they don't seem to really exist apart from occasional kind of things talking about anti-Semitism in Israel. But the person who was the main author of the report has very close links to the Stop Funding Fake News shady site that was set up in order to attack. They couldn't get me because I don't advertise, but they did again target the Canary on that, and really went after it. I think they actually said at one point that shutting down the Canary was one of their aims. And a guy who writes a regular blog for them, as far as I can tell, is then the author of this report that suddenly claims to be impartially analysing the output of the Canary in this case, and but the same group has spent all this time trying to defund them by attacking their advertising streams. So the impartiality of the whole thing has to be questioned, and it does suggest that there's a lot of kind of other stuff going on under the surface that we only see the odd kind of bit poking up. But what kind of level of coordinated attack is going on the left media at the moment to try to shut us all down and silence an inconvenienced voice, because they've co-opted and taken over the Tories, everything that's the BBC, etc., and most of the press. So they're trying to kind of the odd kind of discordant voice that's refusing to shut up then gets the attention turned on it, and it finds itself in the crosshairs almost literally. So that's my reading of the situation is it's a pretty naked attack.
Do you think that
justify himself?
I mean, do you think this is a way that we could be getting back, we're moving it back a bit? Because if we look at John Mann, I mean, I'll just play a clip of John Mann for people to see. Let me just try and get this one to work. Oh, it's not working. It's not working. You know what it's like, Steve. Sometimes these things don't work. But we all do remember, I'm sure, that the time when he confronted Ken Livingstone and just yelled abuse at him with cameras behind him somehow, miraculously.
Yeah, convenient, wasn't it? They happened to be there.
That he seems to have got stronger and more emboldened by that kind of that way that he did that confrontation, and he's kind of moved on and got stronger. Do you think this might be where things move back a bit for him?
Well, it would be lovely to see, but I mean, obviously he's got the full backing of the Tory government. I can't remember if he was like Ian Austin, who actually campaigned for the Tories during the general election, but there was he certainly made a peer by the Conservatives for his services to whatever it was he was supposedly serving. So he's in a position of influence and privilege. Who knows? I mean, it should undermine his credibility. I mean, they're very public here. The very content of the report should have undermined his credibility if he's going to back that. But that's the that's the way that things are at the minute. That the media, the mainstream media, and the whole establishment will studiously ignore or actively cover up.
It's not in the media, is it? You don't
see
the
wrongdoings and failings of that. Yeah, you can guarantee if this had gone the other way, that me and Steve and the two publications would have been all over the headlines. Probably would have got even onto the BBC News channel and all this kind of thing, with some kind of analysis about how this report had found we're all anti-Semitic. But then, as soon as it finds the right conclusion that we're not, and there was never any grounds for thinking so, then we adhere to journalistic standards the whole time. Suddenly, there's a deafening silence, and that's the that's the broken democracy that we live in at the moment, sadly.
And the other Steve Topple, how do you see things going from here? What do you think we need to do as activists, as socialists? What should we be doing to support you? Other than
look, I mean, with my PR head on, of course, we'd appreciate people supporting the Canary financially, but it's more that we have a massive task ahead of us, as Steve Walker just alluded to. The corporate press would have been all over this if it had gone a different way for us, and Impress had branded us as an anti-Semitic outlet. I think there's a lot of work to be done. I think it boils back down to, though, that we have to keep fighting on all fronts and keep fighting generally as socialist campaigners and activists. I think independent media plays a role in that. I think Len McCluskey I think it was earlier this year, alluded to the fact that trade unions might like to start funding independent media because of the way the Labour Party is going. It would help greatly to promote socialist values and socialist causes. But what I would also say, just sort of to the side of that point, is that it was very interesting when this was going on, and Mann's report, but prior to this as well, for me personally, it kind of exposed where certain people were. Because if you look at certain sections of alleged left-wing media, a lot of them didn't really come out and support Skwawkbox and Canary. Owen Jones specifically joined in this campaign, quite happily trying to ruin the Canary and quite happily targeting Kerry-Ann personally. I think it exposed just who real comrades are and who they're not. And I think there's a valuable lesson to be learned in that with fake socialists, and I think we need to be wary of that moving forward. But generally, I think we need to. There has to be also some sort of structural change within how the left operates, and independent media, more so now than ever, needs to be included within that. And I think trade unions are key. And I'd like to see some more from what Len McCluskey said originally about funding independent media outlets. I think it could be a game changer.